So most of the time whenever you're making spaghetti for your family, it's coming out of a jar, right? I'm going to show you just as quick of a way as the jar, but fresh, and it's so good and so much better for you too. I'm gonna also pair it with some cheesy bread that you're gonna put in the oven with butter and garlic and onions. It's delicious. All of that and more when we come back.
Hi, I'm Laura Will. I'm a wife, a mom, a blogger, and a busy bakery owner. I'm also a self-taught home cook, baker, and cake decorator all wrapped into one. My food style is easy and delicious. With the combination of whole foods and my quick tips and tricks, you too can cook the Scratch Made Simple way.
All right, so first things first, I'm gonna start my pot of water boiling that's gonna be for my noodles. As I always say, I season this with some salt, so it's a chance to season my noodles. I'm not gonna put them in just yet. I'm gonna let my water start boiling. But while that's happening, we are going to start a really nice big loaf of cheesy garlic bread to go along with our fresh pasta. So I just get this store-bought. It's an Italian loaf of bread. You don't need to make a whole loaf of bread and everything yourself. Just grab this baby at the store and you are good to go. You are going to take a knife and you're gonna score your bread zigzag like this. You're gonna kind of make it an X pattern. And the reason you're doing that is because we are gonna stuff this entire loaf with butter and garlic and cheese and all kinds of ooey gooey good stuff that you can put this big loaf right on the table and your family can kind of just pull it apart and serve themselves as much as they like. And it's really good to dip in your fresh marinara sauce. So you're gonna actually be kind of cutting this the whole way down through the bottom because you wanna be able to pull it apart easily, but you don't wanna cut completely through your loaf of bread because you don't want all of the butter and everything that you're stuffing this with to come out. So again, you're gonna do kind of like an X pattern, just like this. So if this isn't even super duper fresh, that is okay because it's gonna be baked in the oven and it's gonna have all this really good stuff stuffed in it. So if it's kind of like a day older, that's totally fine. So that's what you're doing with this. All right, so we've got this going like this in an X pattern. And I'm gonna show you kind of what I prefer. If you wanna stuff your bread with different things, you can stuff it with whatever you want. But this is kind of what I like to do with the marinara. All right, just like this. See how there's nice kind of pockets going on in here, just like that? It's exactly what you want going on with your bread. So I'm gonna set this aside for just a second. And then you're gonna take a whole stick of butter. Don't worry, that's gonna go in the whole loaf of bread. So as long as you don't eat a ton of it, you're not gonna be getting tons and tons of fat, but I mean, there's definitely gonna be, we are using a whole stick of butter, but it's totally worth it. All right, so we're gonna do this. We're gonna melt this in the microwave real quick. I put mine in from anywhere 30 seconds to about a minute. You can do it in 30-second intervals if you don't want it like popping in the microwave and everything, that's fine. And then while that's going on, I'm gonna grab some of my scallions here. These are just little green onions that I've got. And then I like to kind of chop some of the top off. I'm not gonna use all of those. I'll discard these guys. And then I take the little bulbs off as well of the bottom like that, because you're not gonna be putting that in your bread either. And then you're just gonna kind of dice these guys up. You're gonna tuck this in between all of those little nooks and crannies of your bread. This gives it a nice, really yummy, oniony flavor. Just like that. I love bread so much. My family loves bread too. And if you don't want to do a version of this stuffed with cheese and butter and everything, if you're not really gonna go for it, hey, you can just do kind of like a traditional crusty bread. A lot of times for my kids, we like to just eat some olive oil on a plate, kind of like you would at a restaurant. I'll pour some extra virgin olive oil on a plate for my kids and season it with some salt and pepper and a little bit of Italian seasoning, and we'll dip with that instead of putting all of these tons of cheeses and stuff in. But this is kind of a really delicious dish too if you're having company over. Kind of looks nice when you're putting it out on the table with a nice big loaf of bread. So we've got our butter, and be careful because your dish might be a little bit hot. So you're gonna take an eighth of a cup of olive oil as well, and you're gonna pour that right in your butter. So I've got my quarter cup. That's half a quarter cup if you don't have an eighth of a cup, obviously. You can just do this. I'm gonna pour this right in here. And this is what we're gonna be pouring all inside of that bread. And oh my gosh, it packs so much flavor, it's delicious. So I like to just dump my little green onions right in there. You don't necessarily need all of them, but I like a lot, so I'm gonna just put it in. All right, and then you're gonna season that with some salt and a little bit of pepper, just like this. And I'm moving this out of the way because I'm about to grab kind of a little bundle of parsley. Now, obviously you don't need all of this. I'm only gonna use just kind of like a little handful. And I might not even wind up using all of this, but I like fresh parsley in this. Now, if you don't have all of these dry things on hand, that's okay. You don't have to use fresh parsley. I just, you know, sometimes it all depends on what's in my pantry, honestly. If I don't have time to swing by the grocery store after a long day of work or don't have this, it's not a big deal. My husband and I are actually talking about, with spring coming up now, we're gonna do a little garden box out back. And this will be our first year kind of testing out some gardening, but that way we'll have these things on hand. And if that doesn't work out, maybe I'll try some little terracotta pots inside, but it's really nice. It does make a difference in your dish using fresh. It totally does. But again, if you don't have this on hand, it's not a huge deal. You can use some dry parsley, that's okay. I often do that when I don't have these things. All right, so you're gonna take a little bit of garlic as well, because what is garlic bread without garlic? I get a nice big, just about probably a tablespoon, maybe a little more. Put that right in there like that. And then I like to squirt a little bit of Dijon mustard in this as well. It's gonna be about a tablespoon probably. You don't need much more than that, but it adds a little bit of flavor. Sounds great, huh? All right, and then I need a spoon to stir all this together. I wish you could smell this. It smells amazing. It's just butter and stuff, but with the mustard and the nice, fresh, real sharp taste of that, or the smell of the green onions. Oh, it goes really, really well together. Okay, so that's good. I might put a teeny weeny bit more salt in here. I've seen several different recipes of this bread. You can use different things if you want. Some people like to really go for it and they put bacon in it and everything. I'm not gonna do that, but you know, you could do that. You could put poppy seeds, fresh lemon. So you're going to get, I'm actually gonna need a smaller spoon so I can get my butter mixture all inside of that bread there. Because what we're gonna do is wrap that up in tin foil and let it bake for a while. So this can be a little tedious, but I promise you that it's worth it because all of this going in this bread here is gonna be amazing. While you're stuffing this, make sure you're pulling all of these little X's apart. Let me push this up so you can see it well. Like I said, it's kind of tedious, but it's definitely worth it to be getting all of this delicious butter and everything, this mixture in here, because that's the whole point, is that you're wanting to coat the inside of this bread. So whenever you and your guests are pulling this apart, or your family, it's all kind of down throughout this bread in here. And whenever you're encasing this in the oven, it's gonna be just baking this whole like nice little heavenly loaf of bread with butter and olive oil, and ooh, it's amazing. All right, so I think I've pretty much got everything, all of these stuffed. Now, if you thought we're done, we're not. We're gonna shred some cheese and we're gonna stuff it in here as well. So I like to use a mix of, my family and I like sharp cheddars. Even my kids do, which is awesome because a lot of times they don't like the same things that me and their dad do, but we're all pretty much on the same page with liking fresh cheese. So I just get little blocks like this at the store. I like sharp cheddar cheese and I like Monterey Jack, kind of a mix in here. So I'm just gonna get my cheese grater from down here. Open this up real quick. And I kind of do maybe like a mixture of like a half cup of each kind of. If you really want to pack that full of cheese, you can, go ahead. I don't think it needs too much. I just kind of stuff kind of a good portion in this cheese, or in this bread, and it's good. So when you're doing this, to keep your bread from getting soggy, we are going to wrap it in tin foil to let it melt, putting it in the oven. I forgot to mention that I preheated my oven to 350. We're gonna put this in for about 20 minutes, but then you're gonna take it out and you're gonna let it bake without tin foil wrapped around it because you're gonna let it get kind of crusty and brown, because if you did that, it would just be kind of gooey and, you know. I would even suggest maybe popping it under the broiler for a couple minutes to help kind of crust the top of that. So I'm just gonna, when I drop my cheese, whoops, oh well. So anyway, I'm just gonna grate this so we can stuff this in all of these little X's we've got for our bread. And that was my sharp cheddar that I did. So now I'm gonna do a little bit of Monterey Jack to kind of give it a nice balance of flavors. I mean, if you don't like a mixture, you don't have to do a mixture of cheese. I just prefer it, but use your favorite cheese. If you want to make this spicy, you could use pepper jack cheese, or you could use a Colby Jack. Just straight up cheddar would be good. Whatever you like, you could do kind of like a chive and a bacon with a cheddar. That would be really good. Switch it up however you like. I love telling people that when you're cooking. Whatever your family likes, just use it. And lots of people email me too and say ways that they tried the recipes from the show, they'll take things out that their family doesn't like, and that's awesome because you don't have to stick to a recipe exactly the way it is whenever you find it. Some things are a little crucial that you should keep the same, but pretty much anything you're making, it's totally okay if you switch it up a bit and make it how you like it. All right, so my cheese is right here. I'm gonna pull my bread up a little bit, and you're just gonna go in kind of tediously, a little bit like you did with your butter mixture. Might seem a little tedious, but it's totally worth it with you stuffing all of this cheese in this bread, because it's gonna be really good and gooey and yummy. And this would be a really yummy thing to make kind of for like a, I don't know, almost like a Super Bowl party or a sports party or something like that. It looks nice on a table whenever you're bringing out such a nice big loaf of bread like this. It's definitely shareable, that's for sure, because you're making a lot with a whole loaf, and if you had even a really bigger crowd, you just do a whole nother loaf of bread. So this is ready to go in the oven. So since I already have tin foil on the bottom, I'm just gonna kind of wrap this up and then get another piece of tin foil, and then I'll kind of fold it right over the top, just like this. And you want to make this a nice little cheesy buttery cocoon of bread so it can steam in there and melt. And this is going to go in for about 15 to 20 minutes in your oven, 350. I'll let this bake a while. I'll probably put my pasta in my water and get it boiling. Yeah, we'll set this real quick. And then we're going to go on a quick break, and I will show you how to start your marinara sauce when we come back. All right, welcome back, guys. We are going to start our marinara sauce. We're gonna start with an onion. I happen to have a red onion, so I'm just gonna use this. But if you have yellow or white, whatever you have, even if you had some little shallots or something, that would be totally fine. This is just to give your dish, your sauce actually, some flavor. So in the beginning of the show, I was talking about how in the opening, most people use a jar of marinara sauce or tomato sauce. If that's all you have on hand, it's okay. It's not like it's a bad version of it, but I promise that this is just as easy. It just takes a little bit of extra time, but it's so fresh. There's such a difference in the flavor if you're starting with just some canned tomatoes and, you know, garlic and onions and fresh stuff like this, fresh basil, and you just grate a little bit of Parmesan in it. It's so delicious. The flavor is just, I don't know, if you try it, you're gonna love it. You're not getting the same type of flavor with a pre-cooked sauce as you're gonna get doing something fresh like this. And it really doesn't take a lot of time. This is something I go to weeknights whenever I'm coming home from the bakery and I don't have a lot of time to whip up a meal. That's typically when we sit and do homework with our son and, you know, play with our younger son, Jakey. He just turned 3, so our kids are very little, and in the evenings that I really need to spend time with them. So I don't want to be in the kitchen constantly, you know, making a really in-depth meal, but I also don't want to just give us things that aren't necessarily very healthy for us. So this is kind of my quick go-to on a weeknight, is just a marinara with some penne or whatever you know, noodles you have in stock in your pantry. That's fine. I'm using penne today, but it really doesn't matter if you what noodle you use. That's just one I prefer. So I'm gonna put a little more olive oil in here. And we're gonna saute this onion. And then I'm gonna get a little bit of garlic too. I'll just discard this onion real quick. And you know, it's not pasta without garlic. Gotta have some garlic. So I just get about a tablespoon. Get a couple little bunches like that. And then I'm gonna season this with a little bit of salt, just like that, and a little bit of pepper. Now you don't have to necessarily cook this all the way through. You're just gonna kind of sweat these a little bit to kind of release some of their flavor and saute and get that garlic going a little bit in the pan. If you were here, you'd already smell how good it's smelling already just with these two things together and a little bit of olive oil. All right, stir those around. I'll let those cook a little bit. Now, whenever I'm doing sauces, I just get a nice big can of diced tomatoes. You can use fresh tomatoes too if you want. I have some back here. I would probably, just 2 of these on the vine, I would probably just chop those up and throw them in too if I wasn't going to be using them for anything else. That way I'm not wasting them. They could just go right in my sauce. So I'm going to open this up. What I like about the diced tomatoes too is they come in their own juice, so you can add that. This will really help with your sauce. You're not going to want to necessarily get like a whole tomato or a crushed tomato. I like the diced tomatoes because it's a nice chunky sauce. So I like to add that. Just be careful with your lid because that can be sharp. I'm gonna let these go a little bit longer. And now I'm boiling my noodles for just about 10 minutes. You're gonna have it al dente, is how they call it. And I'm gonna dump this out. You don't wanna overcook your noodles because you don't want them being all slimy and cooked and mushy. You kinda still want a little bit of bite in your pasta. So I'm just gonna let this sit and cool here in the sink, just like that, while my sauce is going. All right, now these have sauteed a little bit, so I'm gonna add my, oh, actually I forgot a step. What you're gonna wanna do too is grab some fresh basil. Now there's really no, I'm just gonna bring this over here real quick. There's no substitute for fresh basil. You can use dried, but I promise you if you have fresh like this, I like to keep a little plant in my windowsill. This is gonna taste so much better than using diced or dry. It's gonna taste much better using this fresh. If you don't have it, you can use dry, but I like to add this in my sauce. Because fresh, I can promise you, is always best. It just brings this whole brightness to a dish that just canned and things like that, as much as like a jarred pre-made sauce, isn't gonna be as fresh and good with, you know, some fresh grated Parmesan and diced onion and garlic and everything like that. Okay. I stir that in, just a little bit of diced basil. That's about how much I use for mine. If you like more, please by all means add a little more. Okay, and now I'm just gonna add these diced tomatoes in, just like that. Now you're gonna wanna let this cook for maybe even like 10 minutes. A sauce like this is really good. The longer you let things simmer, the more the flavors have time to kind of meld together and really cook and be delicious. But like I said, if this is a weeknight and you're trying to put something together quickly like this, you don't have to let this be on the stove too long. All right, so I'm going to let this cook. And what we're gonna do while this is on the stove top, well first actually, I was gonna check on my bread, but first let's season this real quick because I don't want to forget that step. So I like to add a generous sprinkling of salt to mine. And then I'm gonna get some fresh cracked black pepper. You don't have to have cracked black pepper either. That's what I like to use, but I use just regular, you know, black pepper that's in a little can too, that's totally fine. And then my little secret that I use is I put a little bit of sugar in my, you know, if you're just starting to cook and kind of figure things out, if you're doing this, this would be super tangy and it wouldn't be a nice flavor if you just use this. So I add a little bit of sugar to kind of cut the tanginess of those tomatoes. And it's gonna look like a lot, but that's about how much I put in because that's gonna add a little bit of sweetness to your sauce and it won't just be real bitey tomato flavor. That will help mute that note a little bit in those tomatoes. It'll make it really good on your palate. So we'll do that. Now I'm gonna put my lid on and just kind of let this cook. And then in the meantime, we're gonna pull out that bread that we put in the oven, and I'm gonna check it and unwrap it from the foil, and then I'll pop it back in for about another 10 minutes. Let me grab my mittens, and then I can show you what it's gonna look like when you're pulling this out. Now be careful, because when you're getting this out, you don't wanna have a bunch of steam kind of coming up in your face, so just be careful as you're pulling this out. What you're gonna do, let me move this out of the way real quick, is just take this tin foil off, just like this. Yum! Doesn't that look awesome? It's starting to melt. So because you had this in a nice little tent, all of that is melting. But you don't want real soggy bread, so you want to pop this back in the oven to give it a chance to kind of crust over. So we're gonna go on a quick break. I'm gonna do that, put this back in the oven for 10 minutes. I may even put the broiler on for a bit to kind of help form a nice crust and give our sauce some time to cook. And when you come back, I'll show you how to plate all this then. All right, welcome back. Right now I'm going to be adding my Parmesan to my sauce. It's been simmering on the stove for a few minutes. So I'm just going to take the lid off. Be careful. This is exactly what you want it to be looking like, bubbling just like this. So I actually just like to use a little zester for my Parmesan, and I kind of just go over just like this, and I grate it right in my sauce. Now I go pretty heavy on the Parmesan. If the steam is kind of burning your hands, you can always just go like right over here with your cutting board. And you can do this with the cheese grater. I just kind of like to use a little zester because I don't need to do a ton of Parmesan cheese. This will be enough. This is pretty crucial to your marinara sauce. This adds a depth of flavor that's really, really good. And it's gonna help your sauce have a much better flavor than kind of without Parmesan. And I recommend fresh Parmesan. The sprinkle kind that you're getting in the grocery store aisle is definitely not the same as this. You want fresh Parmesan. You could use a different cheese too. They have other aged cheeses like this, but you know, if you're doing Italian like this, simple marinara sauce, good old Parmesan is a good way to go. So I'm just gonna sprinkle it right in here like this. And then you'll let that stir in, or we'll stir that in rather, and that'll be kind of the finisher of your sauce here. Just like that. So we had fresh basil, nice chunks of tomatoes and sauteed onions and garlic, and you can see this kind of melting right away. Now normally when I'm doing sauces like this, I wouldn't be using this skillet because you're gonna be kind of knocking that out over the skillet. I'm just doing this for the show today so you can see what I'm doing with the sauce, but I would recommend having a sauce pot if you're gonna be doing this because it's not gonna dump out all over you. But that's pretty much it. It's a really quick, simple sauce. And even when you're doing it at home, when I'm going through the steps of this, it's taking me a little longer. You can whip this up in like 5-10 minutes, honestly. Just work on it while your noodles are boiling. So we'll plate this. I'm gonna get my noodles right out of the colander. I had these just sitting in the sink. I always use my hands a lot. You don't have to do that, but I just do that for my family and I. Okay. Gonna do this, put your penne out and just scoop your sauce right on, right over top. And my boys, this is one dish that they honestly really love. They do. They like pasta a lot. This is one of my go-tos because it's very simple. They love it. They'll eat it. They don't care if there's meat in it or not. They just eat up the noodles. And then what I like to do is do a nice fresh sprinkling of Parmesan right on top, just like that. And then on the side, we're gonna grab this bread out of the oven, and then you can see how nice and gooey it is. So we'll just kind of do this here. And then I'm gonna grab my loaves. And this is really the star of the show, is this bread. Here we go. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? It's all nice and crispy and stuffed with cheese. And then you can kind of just leave it right in the middle of the table. You're gonna wanna let this sit a little bit because this is very, very hot, but I'll kind of show you in the middle what it looks like. See all that, the nice ooey gooey cheese in the middle of your bread? just like that. And if you want, you can sit this in the middle and let people pull it apart, or you can kind of chop something off on the side. I'm gonna grab a knife real quick and kind of just put this on the side. This is another way you can serve it, and just let the family kind of pull this apart, just like that. There you go. And that is such a nice fresh take on pasta. It's simple, it's quick, it's healthful, it's easy, it's not hard to do. Yes, dumping a can of tomato sauce out is really easy, that's already pre-made, but just adding a few quick ingredients like this that are fresh with the cheese and the basil, it's gonna make such a difference in your dish. So until next time, guys, you can find all of these recipes on our blog, scratchmadesimple.com. We also have a Facebook page, Scratch Made Simple. All of these recipes are posted and more, and if you're cooking along, feel free to share with us what you're doing in your kitchen at home. Till next time, we will see you here back in the kitchen.